Hi, everyone. I see y'all as attendees. I'm going to promote you one by one to panelists. Okay. Off to a bumpy start. Okay, can everyone hear me?
I can hear you.
Yep,
Thank you so much. I
We
appreciate
can't
it.
start our video for those that want to, though.
Okay, that's a new thing. I am unsure how to allow that. Bear with me, please. Okay, try it now, please.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. We're getting there slowly but surely. For those of you who don't know, Alex Piffner is my colleague in the programs division, and she's out in the field working to deliver mattresses to someone, and is not able reasonably to host a panel of this nature from her phone. So I am a poor substitute. Let me see if I can bring up the agenda for y'all. And
Looks like you still got two of them that are attendees, though, too.
thank you, Eddie. Okay, did y'all get a copy of the agenda for today?
Yep. Thanks, Alex.
All right, I am glad that went out. Again, credit to Alex Piffner. I am having trouble finding this currently. Does anybody have note? There it is. Okay.
It was attached to the calendar invite.
Yeah, thank you, Eddie. So forgive me. Hi, everyone. Let's start with roll call, and I'm going to take notes with a pen and a pad, and also attempt to facilitate the meeting and present. So we're gonna get through this. Devin, you're at the top left corner of my screen, so I'm not picking on you. Would you want to start us off, please?
sure. Yeah. Are we just doing like an intro name, where we're coming from? All right. Devin Koenig, he, him pronouns. I work currently at King County on the homeless housing programs team, managing permanent supportive housing contracts. Yeah, and have worked for about 8 years in various direct service roles and local government.
Thank you for that. Portia, did you want to go next?
Good thing. So my name is Portia Anderson. I use she, her pronouns. I work for Friends of Youth. I am the director of our housing and support services here. So that includes all of our more like residential housing programs, TLPs, permanent supportive housing, rapid area housing, etc. I've been at Friends of Youth for a little over 4 years and kind of in the human services with homeless populations arena for about 10 years.
Portia. Noah.
Yeah. Hey. Hi, everybody. My name's Noah Fay. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the senior housing director here at DESC. I oversee our permanent supportive housing and our shelter programming. Happy to be with y'all.
Eddie, you're next.
Hey all, my name is Eddie Matlock Mahon, he, him, his pronouns. I am Special Projects Division Director with the Coordinated Care Agency for the Archdiocesan Housing Authority. Formally or officially, I guess it's a new title for us. I've been doing this work for a little over a decade. And currently I oversee coordinated entry for the agency and special projects and special initiatives.
Thanks, Eddie. Elliot, you're next on my screen.
Hi, everybody. My name is Elliot Hart. He, him pronouns. I am the Director of Rental Office and Compliance for Plymouth Housing. All of my experience in the industry is with Plymouth, and I've been here for 15 years.
Thanks, Elliot. Dr. Barnes Sam, you're next.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Patricia, she, her pronouns. I work with DESC in the as an MHP mental health professional on our behavioral health outreach team.
Thank you, Dr. Barnes Sam. Jaja?
Thank you for this. Forgive me, I'm driving, but I pulled over, so I'm safe. My name is Jaja Floyd. I am the Director of Community Partnership and Base Building with the Lived Experience Coalition of Washington State. I'm also the co-chair of the Continuum of Care Board. And I am wearing several hats. I co-chair the Consumer Advocacy Group in the Healthcare for the Homeless Network. I am formerly Unsheltered Neighbor and just recently been housed in the last 4 years. I come to these rooms with a lot of passion, hoping to gain knowledge and lend knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaja. Kenyatta? Kenyatta, I don't know if you're speaking right now, but you're muted, it looks like. Okay, we'll come back. Sherry?
Hi, forgive me for not being on camera. I'm not feeling well, so at home. But my name is Sherry Tillman. I am a member of this Continuum of Care Advisory Board, KCRHA, as well as the director of the Call Center for Mary's Place. And we also have the contract with KCRHA for the Family Shelter Intake line as well.
Thank you, Sherry. Thanks for being here with us, and I hope you feel better soon.
Thank you.
Kenyatta, are you there?
Yes, but I'm in another meeting also, so please just allow me to listen today, please.
Absolutely. Thanks for letting us know. Good morning. I had to check. My name is Alex Ibrahimi. My pronouns are he and him. I'm the Assistant Performance Manager at the Regional Homelessness Authority. I'm in charge of coordinated entry of the operations and have been with coordinated entry locally since it started in May of 2016. Have had 5 different jobs on the team across the 2 different organizations that have held the coordinated entry system responsibility. Prior to that, I had 10 years of direct service, both as shelter counselors and as case managers. So it's 17 years in total, and I am pleased to be able to have this first meeting with you all and share this space. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the goals for the coordinated entry committee and a little bit about where we are as far as coordinated entry. And I think for a lot of you, it's going to be a repetition of things that you're very familiar with. And for some of you, it might be new, but really wanting to take this time to just kind of provide a grounding in where we are. And I think what would be also valuable, because we have a limited amount of time here, this first session is scheduled for an hour. Going forward, there'll be 90 minutes. But I think I would like to offer, and I hope that you're receptive to it, our conversations with you between now and the next meeting to talk about the history of coordinated entry, because I am planning to leave the coordinated entry team in the near future, and it would be valuable to be able to convey to each of you the 7 years summary of how we got here, and that may or may not influence where we go, but I think it's always helpful to have that perspective. Additionally, I want to be able to answer any questions that you have about coordinated entry. It is a system, as HUD has named it, the coordinated entry system. But I think a lot of applications tend to think of it as a program as opposed to a system, and we're trying to move it towards a system, and that's a thing that will take a long while. But so I think, in summary, I want to express gratitude to each of you. And for those of you that I don't know well, I hope to get to know in the next few weeks. And if there's no questions, and in fact, Jaja, I'm hoping, and it's okay if you're not able to, provide us a land acknowledgement before I proceed.
Yes, let me do that real quick. Here. I want to take it from the town hall meeting that says, we acknowledge, give me 1 second here, because I'm driving and I'm pulling over. We acknowledge that we are in the homeland of Chief Seattle, people of the inside of the Duwamish tribe of Indians. The first people of this land, the Duwamish, are the first Indian tribe named in the 1855 Point Elliott Treaty title. On January 22nd, 1855, Chief Seattle was the first signatory to the Point Elliott Treaty at Mukilteo. 3 other chiefs signed the Point Elliott Treaty on the behalf of the Duwamish tribe. The Duwamish homeland extends from Lake Sammamish west to Elliott Bay and from Mukilteo south to Federal Way, a total of 54,700 acres. The Snoqualmie, Susquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot tribes are also sovereign nations indigenous to Puget Sound. Many people living at these sovereign nations and elsewhere are descendants of the Duwamish tribe and have ancestral ties to this land. We raise our hands to honor Chief Seattle's Duwamish tribe of Indians and all descendants of the Duwamish tribe. We thank them for their hospitality as the first people of this land and for our continuing use of the natural resources of their ancestral homeland. Indigenous contributions and sacrifices are immense, and we acknowledge the ongoing disparities, racism, and political invisibility experienced by the Duwamish and other indigenous peoples of the Puget Sounds. And I just wanted to share that with you. That is Seattle Town Hall's land acknowledgement. And I wanted to uplift the Duwamish people because they are a sovereign nation that are not federally recognized. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaja, for sharing that and for reading that while you're commuting. I'll limit my inquiries to you and also to Kenyatta. But feel free for everyone here, as I go through the slides, feel free to interrupt me. I'll try and monitor chat as well, but I'm welcome to interruption. And I'm also going to give you a little bit more background than I normally give when I present on this topic. So again, for that full picture that I think you all need to have in order to be able to fulfill your role. And I see that Martha Lindner joined us, so I'm going to give her an opportunity to switch over and introduce herself. Hi, Martha. Can you hear me?
Yep.
did you want to introduce yourself to the team?
Sure. I see lots of familiar faces, but I'm Martha Lindner. I'm a clinic manager at Harborview Mental Health and Addiction Services, and I was the housing coordinator here for about 14 years before I became a manager.
Thank you, Martha. I appreciate that. Jaja, you're off mute. I'm not sure if you intend to be. Okay. All right. So Martha, we did some introductions, and I won't go back, but the recording will be available online as well. And this is one of many meetings that y'all have. I'm going to go through a presentation about the coordinator committee itself, and a little bit about the update of where we are as a system, and encourage anyone to interject if they have something that they have a question about. So with that being said, let me attempt to share a window. So tell me if you can see this full screen is the goal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I cannot. Here we go. There's the first slide. So the Coordinated Entry Committee is obviously part of the RHA, and the RHA being the COC lead for the Continuum of Care locally. We are focused in on managing the Continuum of Care in a deliberate fashion that accounts for the expertise and experiences of people with lived experience, and the administration of the Continuum of Care grants that come from HUD. And part of that responsibility, obviously, is the coordinated entry system as something that HUD requires of COCs to deploy in their communities. The role of the Coordinated Entry Committee, in summary, is to oversee the operations and work towards recommending improvements to the entire Coordinated Entry system. The distinction that I want to make here for everyone is that there is a team of colleagues that I help to support at the RHA that is responsible for operationalizing, identifying opportunities for improvement, streamlining processes, interfacing, working, communicating with various stakeholders in the community. And this group is really responsible for being able to help to form the direction of iterative improvements. And I'll say this several times, but coordinated entry is, like many things, something that it requires constant improvements. There is always something else to improve upon. And that is one thing that keeps me engaged over the years, but really want to highlight the grace that we should show for ourselves and our colleagues in the community and folks that are attempting to use these services, is that we have to make deliberate decisions about what our priorities are, what is the next thing we wish to improve, because to take the whole thing at once is unrealistic and spreads our capacity too thin. So a lot of the input that I suspect you all will be honing in on will be helping the team in the future to identify what is the next big thing that the team should be looking towards, in addition to the normal operations, which of course is a lot of the team's work. The key focus areas, and this is really coming from HUD, I will share out some key documents that I provide the team when new staff are onboarded. Suffice it to say is HUD views the coordinated entry system as, by their definition, 4 key components. The first one being the access to the system, and that is more than just who to contact and where to go if applicable, or who to call. It's also situational awareness, and to a certain extent, the marketing of the system, for lack of a better word. And that term sounds weird, but basically, how well known, how deeply does your message permeate the entire community, so folks who are experiencing homelessness know where to get the services that are connected to the back of the coordinated entry system. The other one is assessment, and this is a word that gets used for a lot of different things, and along with prioritization tends to be a heavy focus for folks that talk about coordinated entry. The assessment is a very loose definition. Again, if you reference the HUD materials, It can take a number of different forms. HUD is less prescriptive on a lot of things. And historically, I'm sure most of you are aware, we have used different forms of assessments through the years, some of them more problematic than others. Our present state, I'll talk about in a little bit so you can see where we are. The other piece is prioritization, and prioritization is exactly what it sounds like. I think in my experience, it's important to be able to share with you all, to just call attention to it. Prioritization, by its very nature, is limiting. By defining who is getting access to resources, you are also defining who is not getting access to resources. And that intrinsically is harmful. That intrinsically is unhealthy to be involved in at any level. And I encourage you all, as you engage in conversations about prioritization, because again, it is the thing that a lot of focus lands on. It is always going to be a challenge, and I encourage you all to give yourself grace and look for the best options available to you, and make decisions that move things towards equity. I have observed a desire sometimes to move towards perfection at the expense of the current impact on the ground, and you'll never failing an adequate resourcing of housing to the whole community, you'll never land at a perfect prioritization. You will always have to make compromises, but those compromises you make can be strategic. They can put equity at the forefront, particularly racial equity, and you can have a deliberate positive impact on those individuals and families who are seeking access to resources. And that being said, the very action of it is harmful and unhealthy in my experience. Finally, referral. A lot of our work on the coordinated entry team focuses in on referring folks, partnering with direct service providers, managing referrals through a database and through other types of communication, and then passing them on to housing providers. Those four are the components that HUD defines. Locally, I would say 6 years ago, the coordinated entry team agreed to elevate placements as part of things that we wish to be held accountable for. So beyond the referral, and the referral is an important metric to track, but it is not equal someone getting housing. It is an administrative activity that ideally leads to someone getting housing. The housing itself, through start to finish, is really where I believe that coordinated entry should be evaluated on and responsible for improvements. And that being said, a lot of these intersections of work overlap with other teams and other bodies of work. So while coordinated entry, and particularly the coordinated entry team, sits at a certain unique juncture in the entire system, that ability to identify and perceive and elevate those challenges to colleagues elsewhere is limited by our field of responsibility, our boundary of authority. The next steps on improvement system-wide are often held outside of the coordinated entry team, and I think that this is something that is nuanced and oftentimes challenging to be able to share broadly, because for a lot of folks that are moderately familiar with the entire homeless response system, coordinated entry is the thing that is most visible, and coordinated entry tends to get the most criticism for the entire system. And truthfully, I can effectively identify any challenge in the coordinated entry system and root cause analysis it in a few steps to scarcity. And scarcity, particularly housing scarcity, but not exclusively housing scarcity, is often the driving factor behind the majority, if not all, of the challenges you will have to work through as a team. The crude metaphor that I have landed on, which is I think sometimes helpful, is that, you know, coordinated entry to a certain extent is the car that doesn't have gas. And while the car is not moving forward, the identifying issue is the lack of the resource that drives the car forward. In this case, for coordinated entry, it's housing. Adequate housing will reduce friction throughout the entire system and will eliminate the need for something as harmful as prioritization. And if y'all have your hands up or something in the chat, I am not able to see that. So, and I see there's an attendee, and Beth, I'm going to promote you to panelist to see if you have anything you want to say. So next slide. We, of course, this work has to be a community led a thing. We need to partner with folks that are responsible for delivery of services, responsible for funding, folks that have the experience of trying to use the resources and the system that currently exists. And we need to be able to use a person-centered design approach when we think about opportunities to improve the system as a whole. Transparency, such as this meeting and other ways that we're transparent with our community at different levels, is important. And with our work, we need to constantly be driving towards equity, not just the equity with which we are in charge of, the equity within the homeless response system, but we also need to be considering the inequities that feed into the experience of homelessness. And again, continuous improvement is one of these things that is something you should always bear in mind. The responsibilities and summary of the Coordinated Entry Committee are working with the RHA staff, the Coordinated Entry team, to problem solve challenges that are being identified for folks in the community. It's to partner with subject matter experts of various types to be able to, again, improve the coordinated entry system as a whole. And it's that engagement in a lot of ways. Your responsibility as coordinated entry committee members is to be ambassadors to the community, to be able to have bi-directional communication in that you are going out and you are sharing information about coordinated entry, and you are also listening to the feedback that you're receiving and bringing that back to us as a team to be able to consider when we're doing our shared work. And then for just strictly operations as a committee, you all as members, if you are experiencing challenges, to bring those forward to the chair or the staff about, so that way there's situational awareness. There's a draft bylaws and charter that draws heavily upon the current COC charter, which will look very familiar to most of you who are I suspect all of you that are on the COC board. I will share that out with you all early next week for your review before the next meeting. But essentially, it's the being good team members and communicating when you're experiencing a challenge. Does anybody have any questions before I go on? Okay. So this is the part where many of you have seen. Coordinated entry serves people experiencing homelessness in specific situations. So those are folks that are living or sleeping outside. That can be in a vehicle, that can be on the sidewalk, in a tent, either in the city or in a green belt. That can be folks that are also in a shelter. And then there are survivors who are fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence, intimate partner violence, commercial sexual exploitation, human trafficking, etc. And then finally, there are young people that are at imminent risk of losing their housing in 14 days. That has been expanded a couple years back to include young families, so young parents with families, either minors in the household or pregnancy in the household. Those folks are eligible. And I just as a bit of history, the categories you see in front of you are really informed by the resource eligibility on the back end. So a lot of the impact that we can see through coordinate entry lands on how eligibility is mapped out through those resources with which coordinate entry makes referrals. The teams involved, of course, moving from left to right, are the KCRHA is the Continuum of Care lead, the system performance team, that's the coordinate entry team, that's the team that I have the honor of supporting at the RHA. The community impact team, that's the team of evaluators led by Owen Kafis at the RHA. And then finally, the Continuum of Care board and the coordinate entry committee, you all serve as oversight for the CES. And the team members, as they currently stand, my colleague Leah Sima Fahori recently stepped into a coordinator role, backfilling the role held previously by Olivia Haidos. Karina Jordan Hernandez is our specialist whose area of work includes the American Indian Alaska Native work, the veteran work, and the True Blood work, and that's a specific funding stream that I can talk in detail more if helpful. Nicole Fillmore Mashesha is our colleague who manages the young adult work. Surya Aguilar is our specialist who manages the right-of-way work through the state and the family space. And finally, Tom Regan, who is our colleague who manages the single adult work. Going briefly over some of the things that I think are helpful to know at this point, access is primarily mapped through the regional access points held by these providers that are on the slide. I'll say them aloud. Bellevue's is run by CCS, that regional access point. Federal Way by Multi-Service Center, Renton by the YWCA. Seattle's regional access point is run also by CCS, and Seattle's North Regional Access Point is run by Solid Ground. Additionally, and this is really critical to keep in mind, there are hundreds of community-based assessors in the community that are employed by numerous nonprofit direct service providers. They are also front doors for people that they're serving already. That is, I would say, the most important thing to consider when we think about access. The term for this type of model is no wrong door. The assessment, which is known locally as the housing triage tool, is extremely streamlined. It sits within a coordinate entry system enrollment, which is something that HUD mandates. That coordinate entry system enrollment, of course, is in HMIS, the Homeless Management Information System. It includes information related to history of homelessness, disability information, and income. And then the housing triage tool, which is the assessment, consists of two questions. Those two questions are the household type. Is it a family? And family here is defined as a household where minors are present or pregnancy is involved, or individuals. And individuals can be applicable to both single adults, those are folks 18 and above, and young adults, which are 18 to 24 typically. And then the second question in the housing triage tool is the individual, is there a pregnancy in the household? The housing needs form is designed and is a recent update to include preferences and needs of the household. Those preferences include geographic preferences. For instance, I would accept a resource in East King County, or I would not accept a resource in East King County. Additionally, safety preferences. It is unsafe for me to live in downtown Seattle, for example, as well as local connection history. I used to, for example, live in South King County, or I have family in North King County. That is intended to be able to map to resources that require local preference, or a subset of the units be given to folks from the community where the project is located. Programmatic preferences, these are things such as clean and sober housing is a typical example, or resources that have on-site case management or depth of behavioral health supports, various things like that. And then unit preferences are the tangibles. An ADA unit is a good example with the accommodations that are physically present in the unit. And then service needs, that talks about the appropriateness of need for the person or the family to the level of support that's provided by the program, the housing program. And this is really one of these things that is more challenging to explain, but essentially it is seeking to not oversaturate people with a lot of support, because that is unnecessary and oftentimes resented, and also to not underdeliver that support for people that need it in order to be stably housed. And that's essentially service matched. As a side note, as I think most of you know, oftentimes as people get housed, their service need can shift. And that's something that we accommodate, among other things, through a mobility transfer policy, which is a conversation that probably requires a whole nother amount of time. Referrals, of course, as I said, a lot of the things that get focused in on coordinated entry have to do with referrals, understandably so. I have landed on these three crucial components for a good referral. I think of it as three legs to a stool. Obviously, it's the household's eligibility for the resource, that's really clear. Preferences and choice. We need to be able to listen to what people want, ask them what they want, listen to what they want, record what they want, which is where we're doing that in HMIS, and match accordingly to what they want. That isn't to say that people always get what they want, because a lot of the things that we refer into are not aligned with what people's ideals are. But in the context of what resources do flow through coordinated entry, we need to always factor in what people want. And that can be something as simple as geographic location, or something including programmatic saturation. And then service match, I talked a little bit about it a second ago. It is right sizing the resource to the person or the family. It is being a good steward of what that resource brings. There are resources in our community that are able to house people who through other means are not able to be housed, and we want to be really clear about matching folks to those resources. And on the other side, we want to avoid giving people inadequate support, and that increasing the risk of them not being stably housed. And Dr. Barnsam, I will send you the slides after this presentation, and as well as everyone else on the committee. Any questions before I go to the next part? Okay, I know it's a lot of information, and I'm already tired of talking. The things that I think you all should be aware of are the opportunities for improvement that we've identified in the last couple of years. The first one being is the access to the resources and the nominations and the referrals. The perennial criticism or question that I heard over the years related to coordinated entry, and coordinated entry had historically run through prioritization a small subset of people that were granted access to the resource, and that small subset was known as the priority pool. That priority pool, again, going back to the challenges with prioritization as a concept, was approximately 60 households for each population. And what we heard over the years constantly was, how do I get my family on the list, meaning the priority pool? Or I know someone that would be perfect for this resource, but they're not on your list. And we've heard that criticism and that inquiry many times. And what we have done is we have introduced a process by which we expand access to the resources in the community to anybody experiencing homelessness, so long as they are in HMIS, of course. And we have allowed the providers, the direct service emergency service providers, to nominate folks to the resource and help to navigate them to the housing. And that's something that we really did as a result of some of the learnings that we had from the emergency housing voucher program that took took hold from late 20, I think it was late 21 to all the way through 2022. This is essentially reverse matching. So providers in the community are, by virtue of their normal activities, getting to know people, learning what it is that they need, and are invested in seeing them supported through housing. And rather than artificially limit who can get into housing, we have created a process by which those providers are able to help support people into housing from the point of first connection to housing placement. And the logic behind this, and this is applicable to some people, I want to be clear with you all. The logic behind this is that unfortunately, a lot of the work that goes into getting housed is not clear. It is not necessarily intuitive. In fact, I think oftentimes it's counterintuitive. It intersects with different systems that are not user-friendly and are confusing unless you have built up the experience to be able to navigate those resources. And really what we look to for our colleagues in the emergency direct service part of things, and I'll be very clear about what I mean, is people that are case managers in shelters or outreach workers, navigators is sometimes their title, anybody that's serving folks that are currently experiencing homelessness. What we look to from their teams is to be able to help demystify those things and act as a support to the person or family experiencing homelessness to help them successfully get into housing the first time. We have had a process that did not provide that consistently for everyone, and the results are what you would expect. Is a lot of the challenges that people encounter slow down the process, and on the back end, the housing provider who's responsible for making sure that the housing is used, they have to move on to other folks that are needing that housing. And no one wants to see that. We want to be as effective as possible. And so the goal here of this design is to use the relationships that are existing with providers and people experiencing homelessness in order to support those people experiencing homelessness into housing. That being said, I think that there's an opportunity to take the resources that do not provide the depth of support that we often see in things like permanent supportive housing, those resources that are lighter touch, such as diversion and rapid rehousing, and more intentionally put them at the front door of the system, so that way people can self-navigate through those processes. And as I'm sure most of you know, rapid rehousing includes case management support. So I think that there's progress being made with this new design, and also there's an additional, to my earlier point, opportunity to improve the system as a whole and make sure that people have access to resources as early as possible. And I would leave that to you all to continue to do this work in the future. The other Marvin, just as an FYI, you're off mute. I don't know if you intend to be. The other piece is providers are essentially reverse matching, which is the term that we learned from other COCs and apply to the emergency housing voucher. And for awareness, that emergency housing voucher program that we stood up in partnership with the local public housing agencies was one of the highest performing of its type nationwide, and that I think is due in large part to the providers' good work. And this is something I don't have a graph for you, but if I'm in the giving you as much information as I can, train of thought, there is in our community lighter touch resources on one end of the spectrum, and there are higher supportive resources on the other end of the spectrum. But there are a majority of people, anecdotally, in my experience, that just require a little bit of support getting housed and a durable subsidy, a subsidy that is permanent. It may not necessarily be a voucher, it could be a shallow grant subsidy, but that subsidy is really what is going to keep them housed, because for a variety of folks who are going to make disability for the rest of their life or are not able to increase their income, but require but don't require that ongoing support, they lack a consistent option for them. That is one thing the emergency housing vouchers in our community really filled for a temporary time. And whenever there's an opportunity for our community to introduce a resource that sits in that middle part of the spectrum, again, durable subsidy, short-term or light touch support, I encourage you all to explore it as much as you can. The process which we've stood up are a 24-hour cycle, so daily opportunities for folks, providers to nominate people to housing. I know some of you are very familiar with this. We took this process on to a certain extent from the Housing Command Center, working on a emergency response posture where you are working on 24-hour cycles. The process for nominating runs through a Smart Sheets form. Our colleagues on the team sort based off of tiebreakers and make referrals. The process for making nominations is, it does not require someone to attend a meeting. Those meetings are optional and folks often pop in to get questions answered, but the process is designed to move quickly. Resources open up daily. We want to be able to match to them daily. And I would say in most circumstances, we are able to identify matches to resources within the 24 hours. There are some exceptions that have multiple limiting eligibility criteria, which makes it harder to find folks that are those three things: eligible, wanting the resource, and appropriate service matches for the resource. But by and large, those resources that had historically stayed open for days, if not weeks before this process shifted, are now getting filled in a matter of hours or a day, a couple days at the most. And this I think is proof that we have done something which gets towards the broader access. This doesn't do anything about housing scarcity. And this is something that, again, the tension in our community around coordinated entry often boils down to scarcity of resources, in particular housing. The other spaces and other pathways that we have a part in playing is the American India Alaska Native Case Conferencing, which really is run ad hoc as resources become available. The mobility transfer policy, which is designed to keep people housed, or if they exited recently from housing, to get them rehoused as quickly as possible. The True Case Conferencing, that is again ad hoc as required by resource availability. And then the Veteran Case Conferencing, which is weekly and takes place in deep partnership with colleagues at different organizations, including the VA, the King County Veterans Program, the Washington State Department of Veterans Affairs, and many nonprofit organizations in our community that are working to serve veterans. And then this process, this shift has really elevated or re-elevated some challenges in our community. I think one noteworthy thing is chronic homelessness verification. It's a significant barrier because of the documentation challenge. I know this is not a new challenge in our community or anywhere, but it is something that is coming up repeatedly. And I know some of the colleagues on this call have experienced that from the housing provider perspective. Again, as I described earlier, there's a lack of middle path options for folks that require a durable subsidy, but limited or little ongoing social service support or human service support. There is a real lack of options available for them. And then broadly speaking, for our direct service providers in the community, there's an inconsistent shared awareness of housing types as they're mandated by HUD, and how those housing types map to the portfolio of resources in our community. So,
Alex,
yes,
real quick, will you please tell me what True Blood is?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jaja. So True Blood was a class action lawsuit brought against the state years ago related to how long people sat in jail waiting a mental health competency evaluation. That was found to be too long. I'm not a legal scholar, so forgive me for not using legalese, but too long, and as a result, the judgment ruled that there would be funding provided to support those folks that had been made to sit in jail for longer than should have been, waiting that mental health competency evaluation. And some of those resources were allocated to housing support, and they're really about additional support at existing permanent supportive housing to be able to keep that group of folks housed. And to be really clear, those are folks that have high behavioral health needs and are also frequently involved in the criminal legal system. So it's about keeping getting those folks into housing and keeping them housed with additional supports within an already supportive environment.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome so much. So along with those challenges that I identified in the last slide, there's opportunities, of course. So in November, we're going to work to build up a training battery for our colleagues that are in our community to be able to teach them about the HUD project types, of course, explain how those resources in our community map to those project types and where nuances and idiosyncrasies exist, and also provide them additional context around what those project types are meant to do. And a good example, of course, is permanent supportive housing. Why does permanent supportive housing exist? What is the funding that goes into that resource? Who is it meant to serve? And then also provide them additional support and best practices on documenting things like chronic homelessness, but also just documenting necessary things to be able to house folks. And then maintain that training on a monthly basis. So after we have established multiple opportunities for folks to attend that training in November, it's the maintaining and having a monthly meeting that would essentially serve both as an orientation to coordinate entry for folks that are new to the work or coming back to the work, and also giving them that education and that training around the community housing resources that I think is not necessarily consistently provided for our colleagues across the board. The other thing to describe or to highlight here is, while HMIS provides us a lot of quantitative data, there is a point of friction that I know most of you are familiar with related to referrals. We are doing our best to be able to ensure that the nominations and the referrals are of quality. And here I'm defining quality as people are eligible for the resource, people want the resource, and people are a good service match for a resource. Again, those three legs of the stool that are required. There are those referrals do not always lead to housing. And to my earlier point of, we as the coordinated entry system should also be accountable to housing people, not simply making referrals. So with the process of making referrals, there are times where things are unsuccessful. Maybe the person gets to the resource, they take a look at it, and it turns out it's not for them. Maybe the housing provider is reflecting and saying that they are not eligible for the resource. Maybe the contact skipped a beat and folks weren't able to do things in a timely manner because of the challenges related to contacting people that are in survival mode and in a constant state of crisis, those things that we're familiar with. And so what we have done is we've created a form in HMIS that the coordinated entry team, the colleagues that I support, are able to fill out when there are particular circumstances that we want to be able to capture related to qualitative information. Examples could be related to the experience that the household experiences meeting with the housing provider. It could be it could be a dissonance in narratives coming from both the housing provider and the household, or that household's navigator, their support person, related to the steps that led to the unsuccessful referral or the lack of placement. Those types of things we want to be able to capture and memorialize in HMIS for later use in evaluation. And this is something that the team is starting to do, and we will hopefully over the next quarters of years or the next months be able to capture some of these more critical pieces of information that then can be used at a systems level to think about how we should iterate and improve on coordinated entry. So that's everything for that slide, and forgive me, I'm starting to run out of steam. The other thing, of course, is prioritization. As I mentioned, it gets focused in on a lot. We have in 2020, in April 2020, HUD offered an opportunity to Continuum of Cares to use, and I realize we're at time, so I'm going to stop here. We will come back to the rest of it, or I will share the slide deck with folks. I was on the next to the last slide. I will share the slide deck with folks, and we will meet. I will provide an opportunity to meet with you all between now and the next meeting to talk and answer any questions you have.
Thank
Any
you,
questions?
Alex.
Yeah, thank you so much,
Yeah,
Alex.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
Have a good day, everybody.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Alex.
Bye, everyone.
You too. Bye.
Bye, guys.